Hello everyone! It's been a long time since I sat here and filmed a video and I'm so excited to do so. And I'm filming a video that is very long overdue. But it is my favourite books of the year so far, and I'm just going to do it for January up until June. So at the moment, this is the end of August, I have read 59 books, but between January and June I read 50 books. So quite a lot during that period, and then you're seeing like 9 between July and towards the end of August. And that's just slowed down for life reasons, but we will ignore that. So I am going to make this difficult for myself when I'm editing and go through, basically, I'm not going to talk about every single book because there is a lot of them, but what I am going to do is show you like my Storygraph breakdown, because I do feel like this year I have read a lot of books that I've really enjoyed. My most highest rating on Storygraph is 4 stars, which is so wonderful to see because it means I'm enjoying a lot of the books that I'm reading. I have given 16 books 4 stars and 5 books 5 stars. So what I'll do is take you through the monthly breakdown, and then I will talk about some of the books. So some of them I have already spoken about, so I will just direct you to those videos. But otherwise, yeah, let's get into it. So in January I read 5 books. I gave 1 book 4 stars, another book 5 stars, and I believe I have my laptop here, so I'm just going to check this at all times. My average rating for January was 3.5 stars. The book that received 4 stars is The Children on the Hill, and I do believe I have a video talking about this one. It was a book club read, and the book that I gave 5 stars was Becoming the One by by Rising Woman anyway. And again, I think this was actually a reread for January because I first purchased it in 2023 and read it then, and then ended up reading it again because I loved it so much, and that one I definitely do have a video on. In February I read 6 books. I gave 2 books 4 stars and 1 book 1 star. My average rating for that month was 3.5 stars, and you will see the 3 books that got the highest ratings around my head, as well as the graph. In March I read 9 books and I gave 2 books 4 stars. My average rating for that month was 2.86 stars, and that's what I like about Storygraph. You can do like half ratings and quarter ratings as well, so that's incorporating some of those. And I believe the 2 books I read were Yellowface and Memphis. I know I've talked about both of them because Memphis I read for the Women's Prize for Fiction, and Yellowface I spoke about in a reading vlog. In April I read 7 books and I gave 1 book 5 stars, which was actually a poetry collection, and the overall rating for that month was 2.5 stars. Again, I do believe I've talked about this poetry collection before. I'm sure I actually have a recent read where I just speak about poetry, so that's definitely in there. In May I read 15 books, but a lot of this are actually graphic novels, which was the Saga series. So I ended up giving 6 books, which I'm sure majority of them are the Saga collections. I ended up giving 6 books 4 stars, and then I read 1 book which I gave 5 stars. My average rating for that month was 3.4 stars. And then in June I read 7 books. I gave 3 books, I believe. Yeah, 3 books 4 stars and 1 book 5 stars, and my average rating for the month of June was 3.4 stars. So that's just to give an overview of those 6 months. I believe April was the lowest month with the 2.5 stars. And that's just because only 1 book got 5 stars, and then the rest were actually 3.5, 2.5, 2, 1.5, and then there was a 1 star. Oh, I'm intrigued about that 1 star. Oh, okay, that was the Bandit Queens. So let's dive into each month, and I will just highlight some of the books that I do want to speak about. So yeah, January was Becoming the One and The Children on the Hill. Becoming the One, I definitely have spoken about this before, but this is more of a self-help book, and I just found it absolutely gorgeous and just really encouraging about developing like a relationship with yourself, but also how to strengthen that when you enter into a relationship, and just like really work on yourself but also work on the relationship as well. And then The Children on the Hill is like a thriller book. It was one that I primarily enjoyed, and again, I'm sure I've spoken about it, and if I haven't, apologies. But I remember giving it this rating because the book actually surprised me more than, obviously the contents of the book were really good, but I loved the twists and turns in the book, and I thought like it was just really cleverly done for me. I find thrillers sometimes can be very predictable, very boring, just very over dramatic, and then you get to the end and you're like, what the hell was that? Whereas with this, I was just like really intrigued by the story, and then when I got to the end I was like love those twists and turns. So yeah, hopefully I do have another video where I've actually spoken about the plot in it. Again, for February, the 2 books that I gave 4 stars, I have spoken about them before. So one of them was a poetry collection called All the Men I Never Married, and I definitely spoke about that in my recent reads poetry, so I will link it up here and also down below. The other book is The Dark Side of the Light Chasers, which I read during the month of February, obviously. Again, this is another self-help book, and it's actually one that I've picked up again because it's one of those books that has loads of exercises in it, and at the time I just wanted to absorb the information, and now I'm trying to do those exercises. I just got sidetracked by life. This book, very simply put, if I haven't spoken about it, it is about finding your shadow, and shadow refers to the parts of yourself that you have kept repressed or hidden, either because you realise that these values were things that people were shamed for, or these are values or qualities in yourself that you were shamed for, and therefore you have repressed those. And it also talks about the spectrum of what we as humans have the capacity to be. So we all have the capacity to be good, we all have the capacity to be bad, you know, we all have the capacity to be jealous, all these sorts of things. And it's about, like, are you hiding those parts because you feel like those will make you a bad person, and therefore, like, you don't show any sense of that, you know, not even the worst of it, just even the bits of it that would be good for you. It's a very interesting book, and yeah, I'm just trying to work through the little exercises that it has. The book that I gave 5 stars in February was Mame by Jessica George. I absolutely loved it, and I know I have promised to do a review video on it. I haven't done it yet, which is so bad. But this is a nice, like, coming of age, even though she is actually in her mid-20s. But it is about a young Ghanaian girl growing up in London, and it is about the sort of fractured relationship she has with her family, and how when she's now in the workplace and just going through her life, just little bits of that are starting to crumble. And it is about how she deals with that. It is about culture, like Ghanaian culture. It is about family. It is about like long-term chronic illness and caring for an older family member, and also just about coming to grips with what you as a person want for your life versus what other people want from you, and just like it's a lot to do with people pleasing. It's a really, really lovely book, and I saw so much of myself in it, and I think that is what's really nice about it, to see a lot of fiction coming from Black Ghanaian writers who, you know, were born in the UK, writing about that sort of family, the way you grow up in family, and how that sort of differs sometimes when you have parents that come from another country to this country, and just what the expectation is of you, and just how you're sort of trying to find your place in this world, as anyone would be, but also dealing with like the cultural expectations for you, but then like what do you want for your life. It's absolutely lovely, and like I said, I saw so much of myself in it. I actually have to say it did make me cry. Like, there were little bits where I just completely welled up and cried, because I was like, I feel that so deeply. So yeah, you can probably tell because it hit on such a personal level. That's why it was a 5-star read for me. In March, the 2 books that I gave 4 stars were Memphis, and again, this is one that I have already spoken about. This one was so lovely for me. Again, it reminds me a bit of like The Children on the Hill, in the sense that I went into Memphis not expecting to like it. I really don't tend to like books about like the American South. They always sound like really depressing, and it's just not something that, you know, it's not always about relating to it, but it's like, it's just not something I relate to, and I just think a lot of the stories I hear about it sound all the same and like really fucking depressing, right? But this was so lovely. It was so like magical. Her writing was stunning, but I do talk more about the plot and everything to do with the book in my Women's Prize for Fiction blog, because this was one of the books that was on the long list, I believe. It could have gone down to the short list, I don't know. I stopped reading after the long list, to be honest. And then the other book was Yellowface, again, one that I have already spoken about. I enjoyed this so much. Again, a nice thriller. This book was witty, this book was sarky. I love the author for this. I won't be reading any of her other books just because they simply do not interest me, like but I really like her range, like the way that she can write in different genres, and this book was just fucking fantastic, so fucking witty, and 100% applaud her. So in April, as I said previously, the book that got 5 stars was a poetry collection, and again, I know I have spoken about this. I saw the poet perform this, and she was just fantastic. I love the way she plays with language, with the English language, with dialect from where she grew up in, I went to say, begins and end, I could be wrong, somewhere in the UK, in England. And also I love the way that she incorporates Arabic into it as well. It's wonderfully done. Like, she's just such a creative poet, and the range of things that she also writes about, just again like the sort of difference of culture in terms of like missing your family back home but you growing up in the UK, how that's different, writing about just like life growing up, maybe it is Manchester actually, not, I wanted to say Nottingham, but I don't know, maybe like life in Manchester, and just a general range of things. She really writes quite broadly, and again, that's really nice to see. So yeah, that was a wonderful read for that month. And then we come to May, where there were 6 4-star reads. And as I said, the majority is the Saga collection. So 5 of those were 4 stars for the Saga volumes, and 1 of the other books was The Pale Horse by Agatha Christie. Again, I do believe I've spoken about this because I've talked about audiobooks in terms of my recent reads as well. So again, those are all videos I can direct you to so that you can learn about the plot. But I love the Saga comic series. It's really delightful and surprising. Every single page you turn, you don't know what you're going to see in terms of like an actual graphic, but then in terms of the writing, it's very, despite the fact it is about like, I guess like aliens and people who are like mystical beasts and things like that, it deals with things like war, it deals with things like family, belonging, racial differences and things like love. It's really multifaceted, and I just really enjoy it for so much of its themes, but also the way that it continues to surprise you. And then the Agatha Christie book, The Pale Horse, this was really nice because it falls out of the sort of series of Poirot and Marple, but it stands really nicely as a nice like mystery novel that incorporates detectives, supernatural, and just a bit of just suckiness around all of those things. Maybe the slight angle change there, just had to delete some files because the memory card was flashing at me. So the book that got 5 stars in May was also one from the Saga collection, and this one specifically was volume 3. To be honest with you, I can't really tell you why volume 3 got that. But there is a nice sentence that one of the characters, well, the main character speaks in Saga, and I don't know if, I'll share the photo up here, but I don't know if it's in volume 3 and that's why I shared it, but it was just such a nice like sentiment when I read it at the time. I thought that it's like so true. And that is what I mean by it just has these really wonderful, nice moments of wisdom. It's so full of just the nuances of life, and yeah, I think it's a really stunning collection. I don't think I've read past volume 10 because I was borrowing them from my library and they don't seem to have any more, so it is one that I'm going to have to like invest in, but I highly recommend the graphic novel series. I'm trying to remember where, I know the recommendation was from YouTube for sure, but I can't remember how I got into it. I remember I did read it back in the day, and I say back in the day, like 2 years ago, and then because I bought the first one and then I was just like, maybe pricey, so I don't want to keep spending my money on them, but I'm loving them, so I am going to invest in it. So in June, I gave 3 books 4 stars, and the first one was Transcendent Kingdom. I absolutely loved Homegoing. Like, Homegoing was great. This is so different from Homegoing in the sense that, of course it's going to be so different because Homegoing is literally about, you know, 10 lineages, I want to say, essentially, whereas this is nothing like that. She's still writing about a Ghanaian protagonist, but in this, the person is in America, and her name is Gifty, and it is talking about basically Gifty and her life. She goes into the sciences because of the overdose of her brother when she was younger. He gets addicted to one of those opioids that they give people when they have an injury, once he had some sort of basketball injury, and it is about how that fractured her family apart. But even before that, there was fractures in her family. So a lot of this, what we're hearing, is how her mum and dad came to Ghana and what happened in their relationship, and then what life was like for her growing up. Then this thing happens in her life, and it's also about the exploration of the relationship with her mother, but then also how she has always felt in the family and just kind of like the part that she played in her family. And again, very much like Mami, it's a kind of coming of age for like these older women, you know, realizing the trauma that they have suffered and how they've been made to just like go through life as if nothing has happened without ever addressing these. And in this one, it really focuses on the depression of her mother, which I found very interesting to see, because I think a lot of the times in like African backgrounds, what we're seeing at the moment with the diaspora is the diaspora are the ones like going through that depression. But it's very interesting to see how actually the depression that we're seeing, which Gifty might also have it, but there's no confirmed diagnosis for her in the book, but it's interesting to see how like that affects her mother, and then it's also dealing with like religion and how there's a lot of like prayer away and all those sorts of things. So it's a very sad book, but I think what I liked about this again was the exploration of the family unit, but also her writing is absolutely stunning. Like, they're such different books, but you can tell she is a gifted writer. There is absolutely no doubt about that. And I put off reading this book for so long because I was like, it sounds nothing like Homegoing, but why the hell should it? So I definitely know that I will read more of her books, because she's going to explore all of these subjects of, you know, the diaspora, especially like, you know, we've got African American diaspora. It's still really nice to see, because there are so many similarities between that and like the diaspora in England as well, or across the UK. So yes, that was a very stunning read, and it just made my heart feel really, really heavy. It was very emotive, the book, and I really enjoyed it. The other book that I gave 4 stars was When the Body Says No, The Hidden Cost of Stress by Gabor Mate. Again, I have spoken about this before in a reading vlog, one that I started off that I didn't think I would like, because I was like, but then I thoroughly enjoyed it at the moment. Some of the lessons that I've learned from that, I've already taken forward in my life, and I just know it's for my own benefit. But yeah, I heavily encourage you I will link the vlog up here and also down below about that. And then the other one that I gave 4 stars was Saga Volume 8. Again, can't remember specifically why Volume 8, but it probably had something in there that really touched me, and for that reason I would have given it 4 stars. And then the final book that I gave 5 stars in June was also Saga, and that is Volume 9. Again, sorry for no specifics, but as a series, as a whole, as a collection, it is wonderful. Like I said, when I talked about what it explores, it just has so much variety to it that there will be ones that really touch you and some that you end on thinking, okay. And it's so interesting because there are a lot of storylines, and sometimes you're just like, oh, I forgot about this person's storyline. But the collection doesn't seem to feel rushed or anything like that. It's really taking its time to sort of develop these storylines, and alongside developing them, you're just having all of these range of human emotions. And then it's just wonderful, you know, and the actual drawings and graphics are absolutely stunning. So yeah, I feel like I actually didn't talk much about these books in here, and apart from like Transcendent Kingdom, I do believe I have spoken about all of these books, which is really nice for me to see, because it means that I am sharing the books that I do like. And then of course I'm reading books that are just like in the middle, but I just feel like this year I'm having a really good year in reading books that I really enjoy, that are pushing me out of my comfort zone, but primarily books that I really enjoy. That's what I want to do, read the books that I enjoy. Whereas I felt like last year that didn't really happen a lot. So I am very, very glad of that. But yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. I know it's later than the others. No promises for when the end of the year one will come, but it will probably be late as well. But yeah, I hope everyone is keeping well, and I will catch you in another video.